Razorback Nation, welcome into this next installment of Razor Recap, your go-to destination for the latest updates on Arkansas football. Join us as we break down the highlights and performances from the game last night and what strategies went into that. Razor Recap is brought to you by Scarlet Letter, Arkansas's very own handcrafted spiked seltzer. Check them out today if you're in Northwest Arkansas, and check out the Core Brewery Tap Room, where you can get Scarlet Letter in all their various flavors. I mean, man, it was good while it lasted. And I mean, Arkansas gets a big win 2 weeks ago. We get to celebrate that. And then, homecoming last night, you come out against, one of, in Arkansas's perspective, rival games, battle for the Golden Boot against LSU. And it just seems like Arkansas couldn't come out any flatter than they did last night.
Yeah, man. And, there might be some talk of a hangover even 2 weeks after Tennessee, but let's just be real. LSU was just a better team all over the place, in every aspect of the game. They were just better. And we'll go into it in a little more, but that's pretty much what LSU's game plan was. They were like, we'll just take what Arkansas gives us, and we're going to be better than them. And that's exactly what happened. And they just nickeled and dimed, ate up time, and just overall just outclassed Arkansas. So, yeah, it's rough. It's rough to come out of a bye week like that, especially after such a high 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. And not to mention, Arkansas was the healthiest they've ever been. You can maybe put an asterisk there by Taylor Green because, if you look at it, he looked, pretty decent last night. Not sure if he was, Pittman said in the postgame that he was probably about 90% and wanted to go. But I mean, you mentioned hangover. A lot of people would have thought between both teams, LSU could have been the one coming out with a hangover after a very emotional win last week in overtime versus Ole Miss. And, those roles were reversed. But, like you said, the talk of having, those 2 weeks to prep, coming out of a bye week, being very healthy, you're only missing two people on the injury report, Jalen Braxton being out. And, I think week after week, we're seeing where we need him back as soon as possible. And then Rodney Hill was still out as well. And so, you're looking at an Arkansas team that is as healthy as they've been all season. And, really, if you want to put this loss on one side of the ball or the other, yes, offense had some stalled drives at times, but I'm looking at the defense right now. I mean, Travis Williams, we've seen all year that he's had an aggressive style defense in his play calling, and it seemed like, at least for the passing game and coverage, we were playing off a little bit last night and not. And it was almost like we were afraid we'd get burned by that passing attack by LSU.
Yeah, man, they were just over and over and over again hitting these short plays, 5-yard hitch routes. That's basically what they beat us with. And let me go back and read this because we were talking about it before. LSU had 125 yards after the catch, and Garrett Nussmeier had 12 of his 22 completed passes, that hit between the sticks, less than 10 yards. So you got 125 yards of yards after catch on mostly those small crossing or, hitch routes. And just Arkansas couldn't stop it. And you're right, man. They need Jalen Braxton, I guess, because they were just picking on Singletary and Robinson all night long, and they were just playing.
As well as Hudson Clark.
Yeah, and Hudson Clark too. But when he was playing nickel, they didn't really test him when he was at safety. But
yeah,
still, man, they were constantly 5 yards off the ball, and they would catch it, and then they would just make us look silly, run for another 3 yards, get 8 out of it, and they just did that all the way down the field. And here's the other thing that I just don't understand. How do we let LSU run 150 yards on us? They're probably the worst rushing defense, rushing offense in the SEC. And Arkansas was giving up 100 on average 100 and I think 4 yards a game. So we let them go above their average while we went way above our average. So it just doesn't make any sense to me how they just dominated up front like that. And and you could tell. I mean, Travis Williams was trying to do just like everything he could possible. And we talked about it a little bit about him not being as aggressive, but every time he did blitz or he did bring something aggressive, we got burned. And I was saying that, you can only touch a hot stove so many times before you stop touching it, right? So I just don't know what they would have done to counter what LSU brought, because it seemed like they had an answer for everything. They even went into some odd fronts like they did against Tennessee, and they just ran it down our throat. And then whenever we went back and stacked the blocks, they started nickel and diming us. There was nothing we could do to stop LSU yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the most interesting thing to me when you look at it too, coming into this game, all the hype was about this LSU passing attack. They're one of the most pass heavy, teams throughout, the SEC. All three of their touchdowns came on the ground. They didn't score a single touchdown through the air with Garrett Nussmeier. And I mean, we were talking about that too before we jumped on here. If you look at just the comparisons of the quarterbacks between Garrett Nussmeier and Talon Green, Talon outthrew Nussmeier in yardage in this game and also had a touchdown. Yes, he had that unfortunate interception in the second half, but you look at that there, you take away that interception, Talon had the better game. But then
if you would have told me that on Friday, I would have said Arkansas won by, 17 points, because I was under the impression that this defense would be better than what they were. And I mean, even in completion percentage, Green threw 68%, Nussmeier threw 67. So they were pretty much even. We had an even stats with the quarterback on the other side, who just, has been lauded all season. Well, not all season, but the last few weeks on how well he's done. And he threw his worst game yesterday. But the thing is, they had a rushing attack and we didn't. And I was talking about it with one of my buddies. He was like, why does Bobby Petrino just abandon the run like that? Well, first, when you play down, it's a lot harder to justify running 2 or 3 times every series of downs, because you're trying to get back into it. And the best way to do that is get more yardage. And the more yardage you get, you're going to get through the air. The other thing is they would run on first or second down and they just wouldn't get very much. And you would have these 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 situations. And that's when you got to pass. And the thing is, Talon Green did a pretty good job of converting those 3rd downs at times. But really, I mean, think about it. Arkansas punted once yesterday. Just once. Every other time was the missed field goal or turnovers. And you just can't have that. Like, Arkansas has the pieces to be a really, really, really good offense. They just can't get out of their own way. And I was also telling that same friend, I was like, man, between the 20s, they're probably one of the best offenses in the country. They average 300 yards. I don't know the average off the top of my head, but it's insane how much they average, but they can't score more than 25 points a game. It's insane. And that finishing problem, that's been a problem for Sam Pittman's team since he got here, basically.
I was about to say, yeah, that's not a Bobby Petrino problem. That's, like you said, that's been, ever since Sam's been here. It's like we can get down into that red zone, and it seems like once we get there, just like you said, we can't get out of our own way, and we either settle for 3 or we somehow have to turn it over on downs or whatever it may be. It's just odd. And I mean, when you're talking about it,
Yeah.
you look at the third down efficiency. Arkansas was 4 of 9, so 50%, give or take. LSU was 9 of 15, so we forced them into more third down situations than we were in, and that was and thanks to a lot of those false starts that they had. I mean, you look at it, they had 11 penalties for 80 yards.
Man, you can't say that the fans didn't show up yesterday. I mean, they had, I don't know how many they had, but they had at least 7 in the first half. 7 false starts in the first half, and you still lose that game. You had that type of crowd causing that type of reaction from LSU, and you still couldn't get them, pinned down. That's just insane.
Well, and not only that type of crowd, they said it was, I believe, the 4th largest crowd for a home game. And, in the longest time, with the largest crowd still being, I believe it was 2010 when we played number 1 Alabama here. So, I mean, to have that type of turnout, even better than 2 weeks ago against Tennessee, have them affecting the game early on, and you get them into these, extremely long, second and third down situations, and then, you let them throw some type of, like you said, one of those easy hitch routes, and then the yards after catch, they get the first down, like that false start penalty never happened.
Right. And I know we're kind of being all negative here in stuff like this. And there's 5 games left, right? And there's at least 3 potential wins, right? I'm not going to count Ole Miss as a win right now, because even though I think Ole Miss is fraudulent, I've been saying that since before they lost to Kentucky, right? And if you look at Kentucky, did they lose yesterday to Florida?
Yes, they lost to Florida yesterday.
Yeah. So that's bad. I still think they are fraudulent. And that's why I thought LSU was going to come in here and, they were going to give us a fight, but I didn't think it would be like that, And I'm just looking at who Ole Miss is, losing to, and and how they're playing. I don't like them. But the thing is, I don't like how Arkansas is playing right now either. So, but that also changes week to week for Arkansas.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But Missouri, they don't look good, right? They don't look good at all. They have 1 loss on the season, but if they had Arkansas' schedule, I don't think they would be over 500, right? And then you have Mississippi State, which they're looking better, of course. That's just how it goes with Arkansas. I still think it could be a win. I think, what did you say the line was, like 8.5?
Last I saw, 8.5.
I think that'll probably move towards Mississippi State as the week goes on, but still, I would say it's probably closer to 3.
I was about to say it shifted already. Now I'm seeing it's 7. Arkansas by 7.
Yeah. So, and then there's obviously Louisiana Tech, and if they lose that, then shoot, dude, just burn it down.
I was about to say, coming out of the Tennessee game, we were talking like, okay, this is some momentum. Maybe,
No.
This is a situation where Pittman's getting himself another year, but we're reverting back almost to what Seth and I were saying before season, where he's going to have to get to that 6-7 win mark and make that bowl game to, I think, retain his spot, because you lose a very winnable game. Don't get me wrong, LSU, they're good, but they're also beatable. If you do the right things, they're beatable. And, I still, even though I'm still a little nervous about it. If I look at the rest of the schedule, the only team on the rest of our schedule that I really don't think we have a shot at and that scares me is Texas. Other than that, all the games could be, because you look at Ole Miss, it's kind of similar to how LSU's been. We always seem to play them. It's a weird game, close game, whatever it may be. And then, like you said, we should beat Louisiana Tech. That's a game where that's got to be a must win. That gets you 5 wins, and then you got to find one somewhere between Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Texas, and Missouri. And if you can't find one right there to get bowl eligible, it's going to bring up a lot of questions if you can't finish out the season strong and make a postseason bowl game.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the reason why I said that is because, I mean, if you look back to 2021, which is the best season that Pittman had, they did exactly what Arkansas is doing right now. They're having a lull in the middle of the season, and then they go on to tear at the end. So at this point in the season in 2021, they had the exact same record, 4-3. But they were just coming off of 3 straight losses to UGA, Ole Miss, and Auburn, right? Then they go on a tear. They beat UAPB, easy, but that's going to be our Louisiana Tech. They beat a decent Mississippi State team, LSU. They lose to Alabama by 7. That was a great game. I was at a wedding, and I was mad that I was at that wedding. So if you're out there, if you got a wedding in the fall, I don't like you. And then they beat Missouri, right? So Missouri was trash that year, and I think they were also picked to be pretty good in 2021. I can't remember, but this year just feels like 2021 because you knew that Arkansas had the team to do good things in 2021, and then they got humbled by UGA, just like Arkansas got humbled last night. And I'm just hoping it can turn the season around. You know, they can, instead of, falling down and crying about it, they're going to come back and whoop some butt against Mississippi State on Saturday. But at the same time, I'm just tired, man. I just want to have some good football. And
I was about to say, it seems like it's the same thing year after year where it's like, oh, it's just going to be another not great year. We get some wins, get a big win like we did against Tennessee. That optimism jumps up there, and then you come out the next week and lay an egg, and then it's like, well, we're back to same old, the blueprint for Arkansas year after year where, we come out and do something really good, but then can't capitalize on that momentum and follow it up and, potentially change the trajectory of the season in a much bigger way. Because if you come out and win last night, you're looking at potentially 8-9 win season, in my opinion, throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah. And I mean, at that point, you're also talking about Arkansas being on the fringe of the college football playoff, which is insane, right? That's crazy. And I know there's a lot of people who are like, oh, that's dumb. Even if they would have won last night, whatever. Yeah, right. If they would have won last night, you would have picked them to go to win against Ole Miss. The only team you wouldn't have made them, given them much hope is Texas, but Texas looked like crap yesterday. So, and they got beat by Georgia. There's no team in the SEC without a loss on the season. And there's only 2 teams in the SEC without an SEC loss, and that's Texas A&M and LSU. Guess who Arkansas's 2 losses are to? Texas A&M and LSU are conference losses to me. So, like, if we would have won last night, there's a lot of people that would be like, oh, Arkansas is winning out. They're going to beat Ole Miss, and they're going to beat Texas, and they're going to go 10-2, and they're going to make the college football playoffs, and which would have been insane, right? And the thing is that they should have won that Oklahoma State game, right? We're talking about the team that should have been probably 5-1, maybe 6-0 going into this game. And I know there's a lot of people like just shaking their head at the shoulda, woulda, coulda stuff, right? And that's not saying it to make me feel better, right? Those are the games that I hate the most. Like last night sucked, but you know what? They got beat. They got their tails beat. But I'm more mad at Texas A&M and I'm more mad at Oklahoma State. Saying that a team should have beat us or we should have beat a team doesn't make me feel better. It makes me feel worse because we should have beat them, right?
Yeah.
There's no
100%.
comfort in that. And
yeah,
there's
I
like,
agree.
What's his name? Josh Pate, which I love Josh Pate, but there's a few things that I don't agree with him on, and that's one of them. We don't live in the land of should have, and I'm like, that's true, but that's also more comforting, right? Saying Oklahoma State just beat us, that's comforting. Saying, oh, well, there's nothing we could have done, blah, 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 this and that. No, we should have won, and that hurts more, right? So I don't know, man. This season's just been a roller coaster already, and it's only the 7th game. So
Right.
yeah,
And that's like I was looking at the schedule too, and I forgot this was one of those odd years that Arkansas gets a second bye week right before Texas.
yeah,
So hopefully we learn from this week and do something different before we play them. I mean, like you said, they played terrible last night, and Georgia showed they're still Georgia, with all the doubters out there saying that, well, did they lose a step, things like that. And then you see Tennessee go out there and beat Alabama at home. Did Bama lose that edge type of thing? But I mean, when you're talking about this Arkansas team, it's like they confuse me. It's like they're heads and tails for which team you're going to get out there on any given week. You'll get the team that comes out and plays like they did against Oklahoma State, against Tennessee, that looks really good, very efficient. Against Oklahoma State, you asterisk the turnovers, but you take away those. Tennessee and Oklahoma State, they played very well in those games. And then you have instances like UAB, Auburn, and last night where it just seems like, we're back to square one. And I mean, to Pigpen's point here, I was glad to see Armstrong get that touchdown and that busted coverage last night. It was good to see him finally get pay dirt and Broden actually making catches. And that's something else too.
yeah.
I don't know how you feel about that call on that hit on Broden, but I think that might have been
targeting.
a missed call.
I'm not going to even, beat around the bush. That was targeting. That's bullcrap. And if you look, there was a targeting call at the Georgia-Texas game that it was targeting, but it was not nearly as vicious of a hit as it was against Tyrone Broden. And the thing is, Tyrone Broden had that ball caught. Like, if he wouldn't have made that hit, I bet you he would have caught it. Even if he had hit him a little lower and, brought to his stick or whatever, he would have probably still held on to the ball. But he nearly knocked him out. And you can't do that unless you get hit in the head, right? You can obviously see it hit his face mask. That's
the thing that, yeah, and I think a lot of people are saying, looking at the fact that it wasn't necessarily helmet to helmet, but the guy still launched. He was also a defenseless receiver in the air. Like, all those things combined, the launch, him being defenseless receiver in the air, and like you mentioned, that hit still going towards that head and neck area. Even the announcers, I had friends that were telling me that were watching the game, even were amazed that they reversed that call.
Yeah, it was insane. They were all like, "Yep, that's targeting. That's targeting." And then they came back and reversed it, and they're like, "Oh, okay." And then because they have to be political about it, they can't say, "Well, that's egregious." They have to at least be like, "Well, that's kind of questionable," stuff like that. But no, it was stupid. And the thing is, if I would have known that all you had to do to overturn a call was throw a bunch of water bottles onto the field, I would have told every single person I knew that was going to the game, hey, just throw water bottles onto the field. Now, the thing is if you guys don't know, there was a pass interference call in the Texas-Georgia game that was I don't really know if it was warranted or not, but Texas fans obviously didn't think it was. And they threw a bunch of water bottles onto the field, and it caused a break in the game. And after the break, the refs came back and overturned that call and said there's no pass interference. And it was on an interception too. So it was a big, big play in the game. And man, that's just ridiculous. It was just a bad night for SEC officiating.
And it came out today too, because of that, Texas was fined $250,000. And the funniest part to me is they said that they were going to go back and review footage. And if they can identify you as a person that was throwing water bottles or whatever it be, trash onto the field, that you would be banned from Texas athletic events for the rest of the 2024-25 season. So, with the technology we have now today, you're there. If you did it, there's a good chance that you're going to be found and identified 100%.
Yeah, and it was their entire student section. So, hey, Texas isn't going to have a student section for the rest of the year, I guess. I don't know. But to get back onto Arkansas and LSU, and I kind of want to talk about Tyrone Broden too, because I made him. So I do this section on Razorbackers called Hog of the Week every week. I just pick one, and I picked a couple guys at the same time before, but I choose one that stood out to me that I just want to celebrate just a little bit. And to me, Tyrone Broden was that guy because and this kind of goes a little bit back towards the Tennessee game too, because he only had one catch, but it was a 22-yarder close to I think it was third quarter or the fourth. It was in the fourth quarter because they were going towards the north end zone. He caught a ball on the sideline and just got smoked. Still held onto the ball, right? And without that catch, Arkansas doesn't go down there and get the field goal. That was crucial, right? And that made it to where Tennessee couldn't just go and kick a field goal to win. So that was big. But yesterday he caught his first 3 targets, right? Had that really nice one where he was juggling and it looked like it was incomplete, but it was actually complete, which that was a nice catch. And he took 2 or 3 big hits before that targeting penalty, right? And the only target that he missed that wasn't a big hit like that, it was a good play by the DB. So I compared him to like Matt Landers from 2022 because it took him 5 or 6 games to start, really becoming reliable like that. He had a lot of drops. There was one game that was the game against Missouri State that was okay. He did pretty good, but he still had another 2 games that he kind of just relaxed in. And then whenever they played BYU, he had like 3 touchdowns and 100 and something yards. And then he just kind of coasted from there and just kept being the guy that KJ threw to. And I'm hoping he's not going to be that guy for us, right? There's Andrew Armstrong too. But I'm hoping that he becomes a reliable second option for Taylor Green. And if you do that, I mean, you can have nights like this all night long, right? Because he's not going to think twice about throwing to Broden. He's going to, he's going to do his reads and he's going to throw to the people he needs to throw to. So,
right. Because he's going to be
at least I'm hoping. Yeah.
Yeah. He's going to be able to see, oh, Armstrong's not there. I can go to Broden. Or, he's even seems like he has decent chemistry with Isaiah Satania, who's that key guy, those crossing routes across the middle with his speed. It seems like he's the go-to guy on those type of routes. And then, even though it was only two catches last night, I like that we were getting Luke Haas involved a little bit more. I mean, if you think back to a Bobby Petrino offense, what does he like to do when he was here before? He likes to utilize those tight ends. And you saw him do that last night, especially with him being healthy. I know in a few run sets, he had both Luke Haas and Paskey in, the other big blocking tight end, and 2 tight end sets for run blocking. So, with these guys getting healthy and improving on the blocking along with the offensive line, I think hopefully we'll see more utilization out of those tight ends because that gives another great check down kind of safety valve type guy for Talon.
Yeah. And if you notice, whenever he got up, he wasn't, wincing or anything like that. He got up and he was ready to go for the next play. So I'm hoping that this is a long-term fix for him and he's going to be able to do that throughout the season. Also, what I was saying about Tyrone Broden, it depends on how he comes out after that hit too, because he didn't play the rest of the game.
I thought I saw him come back in the game.
Did he? I didn't record a catch the rest of the game.
Yeah, I don't. He might not have recorded a catch, but I think I remember them asking Pittman in the press conference said that he did come back in the game. He might not have had a reception, but he was able to make a return to the game.
Okay, that's good because I don't want to see him. Once he's starting to get hot, I don't want to see him go out. So that's good.
Yeah. Staying in the SEC news, a quick update here that I'm just seeing. Oklahoma's Seth Luttrell is out as offensive coordinator for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Which I mean, they've been a dumpster fire all season anyway. So
yeah. Yeah, they've been real bad. And man, that game against South Carolina, it's they lost 35-9 or something like that. Ah, shoot, dude, they got just really walloped at the beginning of the game. South Carolina had back-to-back defensive scores, right? All within the first 4 minutes of the game.
Yeah, they went up 14-0,
And
and then they had a pick six that put them up 21-0 really
yeah,
quick.
and then if you think about it, that's only 14 points, right? 14 points, and most of that was off of field goals. They had, I think, 6 or 2 field goals and then a touchdown with a 2-point conversion. I think that's how they got to that 14 mark. But South Carolina is not very good on offense either. They just had a good defense. They turned over that freshman quarterback they have at OU and ran it in. So I don't know, man. This season is just weird. It's weird. Anybody can beat anybody is what I'm getting at. Like Vandy beat Alabama, for goodness sakes. Like there's just no way to predict who's going to come and play on a certain night, And there's a lot of people that are talking, well, maybe the SEC is just not as good or blah, 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 this and that and the other. But I think it's just the parity's just good. I think there's a lot of talent in the SEC, and it's with Nick Saban not there, it's just turned into a free-for-all. And now it's a vacuum, right? Somebody's trying to go and get that power. UGA was trying, but they got beat by Bama. Texas thought they were going to do it, and then they got beat by Georgia. So, it's still open. It's still open for everybody almost.
Yeah. And the one thing that, I think beyond anything that is frustrating as well, that's been a continuous issue. And can Arkansas pull in Arizona State and open up kicker tryouts or something, please? Like, what are we doing? Like, I mean, you lose Kyle Ramsey after the Tennessee game. He has they said a pretty significant, I believe it was a groin injury. And then you have Matthew Shipley that performs well in that Tennessee game, comes out and misses his first field goal in this game, and then comes back later and hits a 51-yard field goal, which makes no sense to me because the first one he attempted was much shorter. And so I don't know if we can make it to next year when we've got Evan Knoll coming in, the kid from Mississippi that hit a 61-yard field goal, breaking Mississippi high school records. So it's,
you know what? There people on Twitter say stupid stuff all the time, but people are talking like, what's his name? Traylon Burks was the guy that made Sam Pittman look good, right? And I like Sam Pittman. I don't necessarily want to see him gone right now. We have to see how the rest of the season turns out. But the guy who made Sam Pittman look good was Cam Little, right? So do you know how many times they just stalled out and they had to settle for a field goal and Cam was just automatic?
I was about to say 50 in. He was, it was good for the most part.
Yeah.
I don't think he missed maybe one or two longer field goals, but you get into that 30, 35 range, he was automatic, like 100%. You didn't have to worry about it. And so now when you have a struggling kicking game, that's one thing that surprised me at the beginning of the game last night. Arkansas had a drive stall out towards either first or second drive of the game. And it was when he missed that field goal. It's like, why are you not going for it here in this situation when you're in the red zone or close to it? And earlier in the season, you've been taking those chances more, but this one time you decide to kick it. That's one thing that threw me off a little bit. I was like, don't slack off on the aggressive now. I get maybe wanting to take the points when you could, especially with LSU getting the ball first and going down and getting the first score on the board that you wanted to just get some points put up. But, with the struggles we've had kicking and you're that close, I feel like that's a situation you got to go for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how aggressive I'd want to be. The thing is, You look, Arkansas is like a top 10 team in fourth down conversion and third down conversion, right? Or I don't know about fourth down, but they're pretty far up there. I don't know why you don't have the confidence to go for it right there. And the fact that they are probably one of the worst teams in red zone percentage, but they're one of the best teams in third down percentage is just it's mind-boggling, right? It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. Maybe it's because the defense is more compact and they can't run it as well. Or Taylor Green can't read the defense as well. Who knows? But still, it's just crazy. I don't know what to make of this team or this season in general. But like as a fan, I'm having fun, right? Like as a college football fan, I am loving this. And there's so many people out there that were talking about how, the transfer portal is going to ruin football, which I still think there needs to be some legislation on it, right? Some cracking down, and NIL too. And then there's a lot of people that are like, well, the 12-team playoff is going to make every game less important than what it is. And I'm like, wait a second. No, it's not. It's going to make more games important. The game yesterday would not have been important with a 14 playoff, but it was, right? There's more people watching because there's more teams that have a chance to go to the playoffs. And that opportunity for people to get there is going to grow larger. Now, there's a slight, less because if, Alabama lost or Tennessee lost to us, they can still make the playoffs, right? There's not a, end all be all with it. But there's more games that are more exciting every week in college football. And I love it. And I just wish the Hogs were on top instead of on the bottom right now.
I agree 100%. I mean, you look back at what you're talking about on the season as far as fourth down and third down efficiency. Arkansas is 51 of 99 on third down, about 51.5%. On fourth down, they're 6 of 13 on fourth downs this season. So 46%. I mean, if you look at that compared to our field goals this year that we've taken on that situation, 60%.
See. Yeah, that's insane. 60% is not good.
I was about to say, before Kyle Ramsey got hurt, he was 7 of 12, 58%, where he was 2 for 2 between 20 and 29 yards, 4 of 9 between 40 and 49. And then, so he missed half of the field goals he attempted from 40 to 49 yards. And then Matthew Shipley, less kicks to look at, but out of the 3 he's kicked, he's missed one, the one coming last night that was between 40 and 49 yards. And then he hit his 50-plus last night as well.
Yeah. So Arkansas is ranked 115th right now in the country in red zone percentage. They've been to the red zone 29 times and only capitalized 22. And only 3 of them have been field goals. So, yeah, that's insane. I just don't get it. Here's another thing. 18 of them are rushing touchdowns. Only 3 of them are only one of them's a passing touchdown.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's that time of the year where, it's we start. It's almost basketball season, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, I'm football is my love, right? Whenever it comes to sports, and the thing is, I can't hardly think about basketball season until football season's over, right? I know basketball season is about to start, and we got this big game or this big exhibition against Kansas, but I'm still thinking how's Arkansas going to do against Mississippi State? What do they need to do here? What do they need to do there? And I don't know. It's just hard to get up for basketball when I love the sport so much. So, and that's what makes it hard, right? I am a Chargers fan and a Razorback fan. So I have never in my life watched a good season of football that I'm a fan of. So, geez. The Chargers went to the playoffs a couple times with Phillip Rivers. So, that's not bad. But still, man, it's just rough.
Yeah. Another good point here. I mean, the blueprint's kind of laid out there for Arkansas. Every team knows you send the house because we can't pick up a blitz, whether it be in the passing game or running game. It's, I think it goes back to Sam Pittman's this almighty offensive line guru, yet his entire tenure here as the head coach, I want to say head coach, it seems we've struggled in that area. And it's hard to understand. If you remember when he was here before under Bielema, was when we had that offensive line that rivaled, most NFL offensive lines. And now we're to the point where we're struggling. I will say our run blocking up until this point last night has looked decent. Pass blocking's been improving slightly, but it's not to anywhere it should be when your head coach is supposedly one of the best offensive line coaches in the country.
Yeah, and that has to do with recruiting, man. They haven't done well. And that's what doesn't make sense to me. I mean, they've pulled in some nice 4-stars the last 3 or 4 years. A lot of it on the defensive side, right? Defensive line. And that has to do with Deke Adams. And Deke Adams, man, but behind Travis Williams, I think Deke Adams needs to be the guy that you throw money at because he's consistently good. And he's consistently bringing in these guys. Like we were talking about pressure. I don't know if we were talking about it before the podcast or not, but when they were bringing in pressure, they didn't get to us a whole lot. And then whenever they did, it was a rough in the passer call. But one time they did just get what's his name? The right tackle, the one that everyone's talking about. Could be the first tackle off the board this year.
Yeah.
For LSU. Well, anyway, Quincy Rhodes was up against him and just swim moved him or ripped through him and got to Garrett Nussmeier right before he threw right after he threw the ball. I'm like, man, and he's like 6'7" too. So they had 6'7" Quincy Rhodes on one side and then a 6'7" Landon Jackson on the other side. That's dangerous, and that's because Deke Adams brought those guys in here. And, I mean, we can't say much on Eric Mateos yet because he's been here a year. He hasn't been able to really build up relationships like that for Arkansas. But Cody Kennedy just wasn't it. And he stayed here way too long, which is a Sam Pittman problem, right? He just wasn't doing it on the recruiting front. And he fired people because they weren't doing that before. And I just don't know why he kept Cody Kennedy there so long. Maybe it was, he liked him, but I don't know. So it just depends on his personal stuff going on with him. But still, that's where it is. That's the problem with his offensive line is they don't have the guys up there that can play with the rest of the SEC. When in every other aspect or every other position, we have those guys. I mean, we have a former 5-star right now on at a linebacker. We have 4-stars littering our DBs. We have 4-stars on the defensive line. We don't really have 4-stars at wide receiver, but they playing like it, and Taylor Green was a 3-star, but he's also one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the country. So, and then you have Jaquindon Jackson, who was a borderline 5-star quarterback turned running back in the backfield. In the only place on this team that doesn't have a genuine SEC personnel is the offensive line. And that's inexcusable. That and then, the kicker. And don't we have a 5-star place kicker right now?
I believe so. I don't know if we're just trying to redshirt him at this point. if it comes down to it being a key area in games and redshirting, and you've got a kid coming in next year, like at some point you've got to, give this kid a chance. Unless I don't
Yeah.
know if maybe he's not showing he can do it in practice or what, but I find that hard to believe
Yeah.
that. I don't know, but like to your point, I mean, how hard would it be for? I mean, Pittman to be like with the state of the offensive line and recruiting, be like, hey, go to these 5-star guys and be like, hey, you're going to get to play right away. You're going to be able to come in and get valuable experience right off the bat instead of going to, your Georgia, your Alabama, some of these upper schools and having to maybe wait a season or two before you're getting your shot.
No.
I mean, that's, in my opinion, that's what I'm telling these guys when I'm going in recruiting visits, especially for these offensive linemen, be like, hey, come in, we'll get you developed, but you'll get in-game experience pretty quickly into your career here at Arkansas.
Yeah, I mean, just look at those. Look at the tackles for LSU. Both of them were 5-star guys. Both of them started as freshmen. Landon Jackson, or who was it in 2022? But they got torn up whenever they came here in 2022, right? They were just in the backfield all the time. But now look at them, right? You can point to other places to say, look, you might not do very well the first year, but you're going to get that game experience and you're going to be able to do what these guys did. Like I'm of the mindset, like, I don't know why guys choose certain people or certain programs necessarily over other programs, other than them just being able to go play with other 5-stars and, being able to win, I guess. For me, like, I'm all about, taking the gamble. Like, if I were that type of player, I would want to go somewhere where I could, make a difference. Why go and be a part of something great when you can go and make something great, Like, go be a part of Alabama, that's fine. But imagine if you come to Arkansas and you win a national championship. Like, that's so much sweeter of a reward. And I don't know why they don't, like, pitch that to people. Because if you do that, you get a couple 5-stars here, a couple 5-stars there, and then you can grow it like Dabo Sweeney over at Clemson, right? Before Dabo got there, they weren't good, right? They don't have a history of being an elite team until Dabo Sweeney got there. So I don't know why Arkansas can't do that as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I agree 100%. I mean, and it seems like they're kind of maybe pushing that way on defense, like you mentioned. I mean, look at I think one of Travis Williams and that defensive staff's biggest commitments they got this year was the 4-star linebacker out of Georgia that chose Arkansas over Georgia, and Kirby Smart, who, defense is his thing. That is, was his bread and butter at Alabama. What helped him build that Georgia team is they're a really defensive first team. And then, they built the offensive side of the ball later. And, you've got the help coming on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, we also got a 4-star, I believe, D tackle as well coming in. Yet on the offensive side of the ball, where's that recruiting at? I mean, to your point, it's like, why would you not want to come unless guys specifically want to go play under a Kirby Smart? But that's to the point I said earlier. If you're an offensive lineman, if you look at the guys that Sam Pittman's put in the NFL from his time at Georgia, from his time here, why would you not want to play for Sam Pittman as an offensive lineman?
Yeah, that's what I don't get. I don't understand that. But the thing is, like, this is why whenever people look at me like I'm crazy when I say I'd rather have Travis Williams as the next offensive coach between like the two coordinators, I'd rather have him as the next as the next head coach, even though he hasn't done that, because he can recruit his butt off. Like, if he can go find another defensive DC or a defensive coordinator as good as him or better, whatever, and still help on that side of the ball, plus he's recruiting for both sides of the ball this time, I don't know why you wouldn't want that. I think the guys earned it. He's going to go get a head coaching job somewhere. And I don't know. I just hope that if it ever comes up and he's looking for another job after he gets a head coaching job at a smaller school, that Arkansas looks to him, because I am all about Travis Williams. I love that dude.
Oh, 100%. That's what I've been saying as well. I'm on that bus as well. It's like if we do make that decision to pull the plug on the Sam Pittman era, Travis Williams is the guy I want to turn to. He's young and upcoming, and I know a lot of people don't like the idea of going after another coach, that this is going to be his first head coaching gig and, having to go through those pains. But from the way he's been able to coach that and improve that defensive side of the ball since he's got here and recruit, why not? And I was curious. So looking at our 2025 recruiting class, out of our 22 commits, 10 of 22 are defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
And majority of those defensive ones are the higher rated guys, other than, you look down through there, you've got Grayson Wilson, the quarterback out of Conway, our third highest recruit for that recruiting class. But you look at the rest of them: linebacker, defensive line, D-line. You've got an edge. You got a couple of offensive tackles and linemen sprinkled in there, but, nothing against them, but they're only rated 3-star guys.
Right.
It's like, where are those 4 and 5 stars we need to be going after to help improve this program?
Right. And the thing is, it's easier said than done too, right? We can't just say, oh, we just need to get 5 stars or 4 stars here. But they had a couple good years where they were pulling in some guys, and I don't know what changed. Well, I know what changed. They started sucking. So, but I don't know, man. It just feels like they're always on the outside with these guys. And there's also a national stigma about the state, right? That's one of the things that's the problem. People are like, what are you going to do in Arkansas? Well, I'm like, what are you going to do in Mississippi? Right? Well, they're going to play for they're going to play for Lane Kiffin. That's what they're going to do in Mississippi. Well, you can't use that with Sam Pittman. You should be able to use it with offensive linemen, but I guess that's not working. That's not enough. So I don't know, man.
And even you look at it, the biggest thing that, I think that is frustrating too, when you're talking about recruiting as well, you look at what we're doing here, and, speaking of like going up against LSU last year, Carius Kern, you look at that name that's committed to LSU, that's an in-state guy, and you're letting him get away.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that are like, well, who cares about in-state guys? There's only like 4 good ones a year, which one, that's wrong. Like, look at this class. I think that's coming up is pretty good. 2026, I believe. But still, like, that's one, it's a pride thing, right? You can get like a, what's his name? Grant Morgan, to come in here and then turn into a baller. But if he were, a guy that never had ties to the U of A before then, he wouldn't have been that. He wouldn't have come in here and turned himself into a team captain. So there's a little bit, that goes to it with the pride thing, right? And if you get guys who were 4 and 5 stars come in here and they're also playing for their hometown or their home state team, you're going to have that with them, but even higher talent level, right? So that's why, that's why DMAC was so good. He came in here and he loves the state of Arkansas. So that's what you need to do. You need to get those guys because they know what it's like to live in Arkansas. Those are the guys that know the struggles and the national view of what our state is, and they have a chip on their shoulder. That's the guys that you need to come in here and get, because look at, I don't know how many 4 or 5 star guys that lead the state that do well. Like I just like what's his name? Tenpenny, was that what his name was?
Yeah, Al
He
T.
went to
Tenpenny that went to
yeah,
Alabama.
and I mean that's a sad story all the way around, but he just stuff like that happens and you just never hear from him again. And it doesn't really happen like that with the guys that are in state to come in, you know? So that's not a very good point to me. Like not taking in state guys. The thing is that Arkansas high school football needs to catch up with the rest of the South, right? Like you look at Mississippi and they have just as many people in the state as we do, but they have much better talent than Arkansas does. And a part of that has to be with the way that we view high school football. It's just not what it is in Oklahoma. I mean, I live in Silent Springs, right? I live on the border of Oklahoma, and I know how those boys over there play, right? It's a different animal, right? But whenever you come over here, unless you're playing for one of the, big 7, right? Fayetteville, Bentonville, Springdale, Harbor, West, all those guys, there's just not that level of excitement for football. Like, I don't know how many times I've come to a Silent Springs game and there's not a whole lot of people there. Greenwood came last week, destroyed them. My goodness, got destroyed. And there was more people there because you had Kane Archer there and Cash Archer. That's why I was there on Friday, because I was looking at them. I wasn't there to watch Shiloh, and they just destroyed them. And there's no reason why Siloam can't be better than that. It's just an attitude thing, and I wish there was some way to make it better, if that makes sense. I don't know what the solution to that is. I feel like it's better in the South, to be honest with you. Those smaller schools in South Arkansas. I mean, I lived in Arkadelphia for like 6 years. Arkadelphia won the state championship 2 or 3 of those years. And it was a big deal. It was a big thing. And then up here, it's just not that. So that's one of the reasons why recruiting in Arkansas is not good. It's because we just don't take high school football that seriously.
Yeah.
But enough with my TED Talk. There's, still.
I mean, another point here with me, you, Big Ben, and his dog knew all those short passes were coming, and we couldn't stop it. So, what are we supposed to do against Jackson Dart, Quinn Ewers, Brady Cook, some of these guys that are those gunslingers, similar to Nussmeier got coming up? I mean, I think the answer after last night is we've got to change the approach that we had, because you can't play 5 yards off these guys, because then you're going to get killed by the yards after catch. So, I mean, Travis Williams and Marcus Woodson are going to have to do some going back to the drawing board, especially because, I mean, that tape's out there now. I mean, they're going to look at it. They're going to
worried about. I'm worried that people are seeing that and they're like, wow, we can just nickel and dime them to death. Yeah. And then if their offense can't be confident, then we're going to win. It's, simple as that. But the thing is, I don't think all of them necessarily, I don't think Missouri has the athletes to do that other than like Luther Burden. Burden? Is that his last name?
Luther Burden. Maybe Theo Weiss.
I think he's good, but I don't think he's like Lacey good or what was his name? The other guy, the one that really burned us yesterday. I don't think they have. Yeah. So I don't think Mississippi State or Missouri necessarily has the talent to do that or make us feel like we have to play so far off. But that is true with Ole Miss and Texas. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. Now, they might just have to say, well, guess what? If they burn us deep, they burn us deep. And then at least they're not going to destroy, dominate time of possession, right? If you go and you score in 3 plays, you burn off 2 minutes, Arkansas can take the ball and they can go down and they can kill 5 minutes and they get a touchdown or hopefully a field goal. And then maybe 1 or 2 times you get a stop. And that's what Arkansas has done all season. They played the time of possession game and they just got beat at it yesterday. So,
yeah,
I mean, LSU was on the field for nearly 40 minutes, nearly 2/3 of the game. So
yeah.
if they can flip that, I think they have a chance against Ole Miss and Texas, at least keeping them from, holding on to the ball like LSU did. But they're going to have to take gambles. They're going to have to rely on some cornerbacks that aren't as good as we thought they were. And I've always felt that they weren't going to be good, especially without Jalen Braxton. But man, that was just it sucks seeing that Travis Williams also doesn't have very much confidence in him, because that's what it told me. Seeing them play that soft, it means, hey, we don't have that much confidence. So whenever they get to the 20s, we're just gonna, play them tight. But right now, I don't feel like we have the guys that can stop them between the 20s.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as fortunate it was, this is one of those games you got to move on from. Can't dwell on it too long. Like you said, you still got plenty of the season left to find a way to get 2 more wins and at least become postseason eligible. And that starts with getting back to the drawing board this week. You got a road test against a Mississippi State team that it's a very winnable game. You're favored in this game. Yes, they're a little bit better than they were early in the season. Each week they've improved, but I think this is one of those games you have to come out and win. I said this at the beginning of the year. You've got a program, Mississippi State. It's in year one of their new coach, Jeff Levy. You're Sam Pittman in year 5 here at Arkansas. You can't lose a game to a coach that's in year 1. I mean, we lost it to Elko, but they still had a lot of talent on that team. But that was a game that we probably could have won. I mean, it was right there on the table if we could have performed better on the offensive side of the ball. Well, this week you got to come out and you've got to be ready to, have a better performance, especially defensively. And I mean, if you're wanting to get a bowl game, you're looking at one of your better shots on the rest of the season schedule right here this week.
yeah, and it's going to be hard because it's at Mississippi State. I mean, they only hold like 50-something thousand people in that stadium, but each one of them has those stupid cowbells, which should be illegal.
I was about to say those cowbells.
So tailing, I mean, they're going to have to turn up the music this week because, they play with music to get ready for noise or crowd noise and music. So they're going to have to turn it up because there's just no way that they're going to be ready for it if they don't. And that's what I'm kind of worried about. I'm
practice.
Yeah. I'm kind of worried that what Arkansas did to LSU is what Mississippi State's going to do to Arkansas. The thing is, Arkansas is not good enough to overcome what LSU overcame yesterday, especially because they give away the ball too much. So I don't know, man. I'm still hopeful. I think it'll be a good game. I'm just not as high on Arkansas as I was, Friday.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm still hopeful we can get to that postseason point. I think that's going to be crucial because, I think if we can get there, as much as a lot of people I've seen don't want Pittman back another year, I think if you bring him back, you give Bobby another year with his offense, you could see some improvement next year, and then I know that's a lot.
Check. Yeah, that's what you need to do. You do one more year with both these coordinators, I think they'll be pretty good. And the thing is, what's his name? Taylor Green, he's got one more year, right? Pretty sure he's got one more year. Now, if he decides to leave or whatever, or if they decide to go with Malachi Singleton, I'll be okay with that too, because both those guys have been under Bobby Petrino for 2 years. And you saw, what's his name? Tyler Wilson, when he came in after sitting behind Ryan Mallett for so long, He was poised and he was ready to go. So I have no doubt that he's going to be able to work with these backup quarterbacks just as much as he works with Talon, right? So I think having both of those coordinators come back one more year could do a lot of stuff, a lot of good stuff for Arkansas.
Yeah, Talon's a redshirt junior, so he'll be a redshirt senior next year. So technically, he would have 2 seasons left. I see it hard seeing him stay 2 more years, but I think he comes back at least one more season. I know we almost lost Malachi Singleton after last year. There could be a good chance he leaves after this year unless he wants to stay and learn under Petrino specifically. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting the way the rest of the season unfolds. It's going to be, it's almost like a state divided here. Getting that NIL is going to be tough, especially if we, get in the year and Sam Pittman's here for another year. Half the state's going to be frustrated. I saw people tweeting and posting yesterday. If Sam Pittman's here next year, I'm not renewing my season tickets and all this stuff. I mean, I don't know how much I don't solely blame yesterday's game on Pittman. I mean, at some point, these players on the field have to perform as well. You can coach them up as well as you want, but that's one aspect that you've got to remember. These players got to execute on the field as well. You can game prep and have them 100% ready as much as you want, but they still have to take that and put it on the field and perform.
Right. Now, the thing is, I don't know how many of those people are going to say that if Arkansas goes 9-3, or not 9-3, 8-4, right? Because I'm not going to pick them against Texas. I think they have a better chance against Ole Miss, but I'm still not going to pick them. But what if they do, right? What if they knock off Ole Miss and they go into the postseason 8-4? Like, a lot of people talk a lot of things with after losses like this, but how many of those same people were talking a lot of things after they beat Tennessee? I mean, this is an emotional game. I like to let it all out. Use the comment session as your therapist. That's what I think of every single time I see these guys. Either they're super happy or they're super upset and they're like, "Oh, fire Pittman over every single loss." Yeah, just do that. And I know that you have to get it out there because you're feeling these feelings. That's fine. But the thing is, there's still 5 games left. Be hasty. Don't make so many rash decisions whenever you're emotional. So now the thing is, if they lose against Mississippi State, I really don't think he's going to last here anyway, right? I don't think he's going to make it past the season if they lose against Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Even if they're 4-4, I don't know if he makes it. If they lose against Mississippi State, I don't know if he's the coach for Ole Miss. Or at least I don't know if he's the coach for Texas, right? Because if they lose against Mississippi State, they're going to lose against Ole Miss. And I think he might be gone by Texas.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things because if you look at it, hypothetically, Arkansas loses to Mississippi State, you're having to get 2 wins between Ole Miss, Texas, Louisiana Tech, and Missouri. Right. I can see one with potentially Louisiana Tech, but out of those 3 SEC teams, who are we realistically beating? Missouri is on the road. Ole Miss and Texas are at home, but they're Ole Miss and Texas. So, I mean, this game is one that, I mean, you've got to have circled, triple circled, italicized, whatever you want as a key game. Because like you said, if we go in there and lose, there could be a good chance that Pittman's not the head coach for Ole Miss, or even, you lose and maybe they hope he can bounce back against Ole Miss. You lose against Ole Miss. That's the perfect week if that situation happens, going into a bye week before Texas to, pull the plug, say, all right, Bobby, because I assume that's probably who it would be. Bobby, it's your team the rest of the season. Yeah. See what you can get done in the final 3 games.
That's if he wants to take it too.
True.
I'm not like super sure that he wants another head coaching job, especially with the NIL and junk like that. He looks happy doing what he's doing, which is weird to say about Bobby Petrino. He's never looked happy before in his life. So I don't know if he would take it. He might take it for an interim job, but I don't know if he'd want it full time. After
I
this
think
year.
he would do it interim. I think he'd do it interim, but I'm the same way. I don't think he wants to deal with all this additional stuff as a head coach anymore. I said that based on his tone. If you remember the press conference he had before the season started, they asked him specifically about NIL and all that, and he said, "Oh well, Coach Pittman handles all that NIL." All that stuff for the team. He said he lets me coach offense and coach football, and that's what I want to do. That's why I don't think all these people are saying that's the whole reason we brought him back was that Sam Pittman was going to get fired and we're going to make him head coach again and all is going to be right in Razorback Nation. But I don't think he wants the job again. I don't think he wants the headache of having to deal with NIL and, all of those things that come with where college football is at. I think he's happy coaching offense, and that's why I'm thinking if you want to stay in house and maybe have a chance of keeping some of your recruits, guys that are here, you promote up Travis Williams. That's an excellent recruiter so far. You let Bobby handle the offense because that's his specialty. I mean, to me, that sounds like a good idea. Now, if you want to go outside hire, completely fresh, that's a whole different story.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, like, Bobby Petrino, he's 63 years old, right? He's older than Sam Pittman is. So, I mean, if you're thinking Sam Pittman's old and he needs to retire, blah, 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 this, that, and the other, I mean, Bobby Petrino's up there too. How much longer would he want to deal with that headache after what he's already done? I mean, he's had a Heisman quarterback, He's gone to a BCS bowl. He's done a lot of stuff as a head coach. I don't think he's necessarily wanting to do that again, but I think he wanted to come here and get some redemption, right? And I think he might want to do that more than 1 year. But I don't think I don't know if he's willing to go through the headache of being a head coach to do that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I mean, that's the thought there. And I mean, when you have again, I think that's the thing you've got to decide whenever hypothetically we get to that point and we're looking for a new coach. Hypothetically, that's what you got to decide between. Essentially, a guy like Travis Williams that it's going to be his first head coaching job. You can get him for a cheap contract, or if you want to go out and pay more money for somebody that's an experienced coach, kind of has one of those been there situations, pay a little bit more, that's fine. But there's no right answer there. I mean, a lot of people are wanting to go the experienced coach route after the experiment with Sam Pittman, making him, his first time head coaching. I mean,
yeah. And who knows, man? Who knows? Maybe they have an ace up their sleeve like they did with Calipari. Sorry. Still getting used to that. But still, I mean, maybe they do. Maybe they don't. I don't know. There's a lot of people that want Rhett Lashley, and that would be hard to do, right? He's hang on.
He's killing it at SMU right now.
Yeah. I mean,
and they just moved to the ACC too.
Right. And I cover the ACC with Clemson. And right now it's a 3-horse race. It's Miami, Clemson, and SMU. And that's pretty much the first team that loses a conference game. And the crazy thing is SMU, Clemson, and Miami don't play each other. So there could be a 3-way tie at the beginning. And then you also have 2 teams with a non-conference loss. So who do you pick? I don't know. But Rhett Lashley's over there doing work in the ACC with an SMU team that wasn't super good. I mean, they were okay, but they weren't what they are now. They had trouble at the beginning of the year, but they're looking great now. So, I mean, if you could pull that, that'd be cool. But SMU can actually, they can pay some people. They've got a lot of money over there. So I don't. You
Pardon
would
the
have to.
cliche. We would have LSU or SMU is prepared to pony up to keep him there.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, I mean, is the board gonna cut another check like they did with Calipari? No, I don't. I think whenever they made that decision, they made a decision that we're gonna invest in basketball now, right? So screw football, which I don't like, but I don't think they'll. I don't think they'll put it out that much for a new coach,
Yeah.
which sucks. But maybe you can find a dumb in the rough like Travis Williams. Who knows?
Yeah. I've seen a lot of names thrown out there, and this one was one of them that a lot of people were talking about just because how well he's doing this season. Barry Odom. I mean, and then the one that it's been surprising, Indiana's coach, Kurt Cagnetti, the guy that brought James Madison to relevance and is doing the same in Indiana right now. Those are some interesting names.
Did you see his recruiting pitch?
I did not.
No, I'm pretty sure it was the head coach from Indiana. They were like, "Well, what do you tell recruits to come here?" And he's like, "I say Google me, I win." And I'm like, "Oh man, that exudes so much confidence." And that's just, you're not like trying to sell them. You're like, "Look, just Google. That's all you got to do. I win. That's all that you need to know." And that's what he's doing in Indiana.
Well, I saw they interviewed him. I saw a clip on Game Day this week. I think it was this week. And they were talking to him about everything and how he preps and stuff. And he was talking about, when he has away games and things like that, he was like, I tell the people that plan, everything, stays, hotel, whatever events are happening. He said, I want to get there as late as possible. That way we spend as least time possible there. We get on the field, win the football game, and head home. He said, I want to spend it the least time amount gone and on the road as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. The thing is, they really haven't played anybody either.
They had their biggest win of the season yesterday.
Yeah, Nebraska destroyed Nebraska.
I was about to say, they embarrassed Nebraska.
But yeah, and that means they're good because Nebraska's not they weren't ranked, but they're not a horrible team. So their first real test is going to come in. Well, they play Washington next week.
That's going to be game day. It's been announced that that's game day this week.
Really? Yeah. So we'll see if they can hold up against Washington. But then their real I think their real first test is going to be against Michigan, even though Michigan's not very good. And then Ohio State the week after that.
Yeah.
So we'll or 2 weeks after that actually. But still, no, yeah, the guy looks good. If he can take Indiana in the Big Ten like that, even though it's the Big Ten West, still, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Didn't they not play Illinois? They do not.
No.
It's kind of messed up. Still, well, yeah, no, those are good. Would be good choices, but I'm not hoping for that because that means hoping for that is hoping for losing. So,
yeah,
and I don't hope to lose.
Exactly. Well, as we wrap up here, very frustrating and unfortunate loss for Arkansas as they came out flat against LSU. Let's hope this coaching staff gets them prepared for a tough road test against a week-by-week improving Mississippi State Bulldogs team that is one of Arkansas's more winnable games left on this schedule. Seth and I'll be back this week to preview that game on Wednesday. We'll have a guest from a Mississippi State show joining us to help us preview and break down that game. This has been myself and Austin breaking down this loss against LSU, and we will see you guys next week for our preview show.